Here we go then with this week's stretch routine, and carrying on with the theme of recovery to go alongside the post I made on Facebook page and on Instagram earlier in the week. I'm going to focus on some recovery stretches. Now, other elements to recovery are going to include moving around first. You don't want to be feeling all tight and sore and stiff and trying to stretch straight away. General movement, your general movement of your daily routine, moving around, maybe a few extra minutes walking if you can fit that in as well. If it's not an activity day where you're doing a workout or whatever, are going to be helpful as well for blood flow and getting things moving and starting the recovery process of getting the muscles to start repairing the micro tears that they get from resistance training. Now, that being done, movements being done, we can do some stretches. So we're going to do 3 stretches to start with, which are really quite easy in a sense. Do anywhere, feeling stiff from sitting at work or whatever as well. After a workout, you tighten up, what can you do? So we just need something solid, like a door frame or a wall. Area that gets quite tight is across the chest and shoulders, and also this will stretch the connective tissue in the elbow, in the bicep here. That area can get pretty tight, especially if you're starting off a program or you've done extra bicep or extra pulling work as well. So we're just going to reach to a wall and then just feel that around the front with that hand behind. Now, how much you can rotate is going to depend on your natural mobility and how much it feels in terms of reacting back against any tightness and stiffness there. We're going to hold these stretches for around about 20 seconds each, and you can repeat them as well. So this one we need to do both sides. If you need it, you can then go back and repeat it again on each side as well. In the interest of balance, if you have got one side that does feel particularly tight compared to the other, still stretch both sides. Just want to keep the mobility balanced, particularly in joints and muscles. Same with training really. Naturally, most people are stronger on the right hand side. Still going to aim to train that in a similar way as the left hand side and try and balance out that strength and any muscle development. There we go. So next one I'm going to be facing away. We're going to stretch down, right down through the back and a little bit into the lower body. We will put both hands up nice and high on the wall and then we'll walk that down and back and out. That's going to have a real good stretch down through the back of the upper back, down the lats all down here, and start to stretch into the glutes as well. So we're going to put the hands up, not too high, and like this, walk it back. And then I'm just dropping the chest a little bit further down, just to feel that really good stretch down through the back. If we get to a point where we're quite far down the wall, want some more stretch, we can actually bend the knees as well and elongate from the opposite end, from down from below, rather than constantly pulling down from the top. Really good stretch for the back. Now another area that gets really tight really quick, probably because of the size of the muscles and the effort we can actually put into working them, because they're naturally strong, is the quads. So, great quad stretch, holding on to something. I'm going to use the wall again, go back of the chair, whatever it is, make sure you're nice and stable. And then we're going to aim to bring that foot up and round. And we'll start with the knees next to each other. And if we need any more stretch, we're going to ease that knee back a touch. We're going to put up anymore, we're going to ease back. And that's going to elongate the quad nicely there. Down to the side. Once again, do it on both sides. You probably find one side's tighter than the other because you've usually got a dominant leg which is naturally stronger, usually the right, even for left-handed people in this case. But we want to create a balance in mobility and do both sides equally. Once again, these can be repeated if the quads are pretty tight and that's an area you really need to stretch. Now, we can do those 3 on their own, we can do the next set on their own, or you can just follow this straight through, because now we're going to take it down to the floor. Mat or a carpet is fine, just whatever's comfortable. If you've got a little bit of kind of padding, that's good for a couple of these. And then we're going to drop back into the child's pose. So knees are just out to the sides of the body, and we're elongating the back through. So you see the arms actually end up in a very similar position to the lat stretch, the back stretch that we did standing up. But now we're bringing the lower back and the glutes into it as well. Stretching right round. In terms of yoga pilates, this is a child's pose. Because sometimes babies actually sleep in this position pretty comfortably, so it's a pretty natural position to be in, but we tend to lose that flexibility, mobility, and another aspect called proprioception of where our limbs are in relation to our body, just from not using these positions really. Now this is one that you are to come out of and go back into 2 or 3 times even. Next up, we're going to go into a high V. And push the hips up, feet are just outside the line of the body, hands in a comfortable position, you can adjust those, and we're up into a downward dog. Now I like to start up on the toes and just cycle that through the back of the legs, feeling away into the stretch, and then holding that there. Your heels might not be on the floor, that's absolutely fine, we just want to feel the stretch down the back of the legs, originating hopefully maybe from the glutes, depends on your own flexibility, all the way down. We stretch down the hamstrings, down a little bit into the calves, that connective tissues, tendons and things at the back of the knees. You're going to feel like they're getting stretched, which is not a bad thing in this position. And if you want any more stretch, you're just going to ease back a bit more from the upper body. And this can also get quite intense in terms of the muscle work in the supporting muscles in the upper back. It's good to come out and then go back into that one, so we're not fatiguing these supporting muscles too much up here, especially if we're aiming to stretch those as well, which we've just done with the child's pose. Next up, good one to transition down from downward dog, so we could be up here, and then we're going to bring one knee right across and the other leg back, so the leg back and across, relaxing that back foot, and this is the pigeon stretch, one of the best stretches you can do for the glutes particularly. Now depending on your flexibility here is how high up you probably end up keeping your upper body. If you take it further forward, you're going to stretch it further around. Now you might have to just play with the knee position a little bit at the angle to get a nice stretch, but we're not aiming to feel the stretch really hard or too intensely from the very first time we're going into it. We want to ease into it. Our muscles have a natural kind of contraction, that's what they do, but they have a natural mechanism built in to prevent overstretch, and that'll be functioning pretty hard when you've been working the muscles hard and they're a bit sore. They'll be aiming to protect themselves, and we've just got to kind of override that by slowly stretching that a little bit more. That's a structure called the Golgi bodies. And their job is to tell the brain to shut off the contraction. So for instance, if you were trying to lift something really heavy, maybe you're moving house moves, a really heavy piece of furniture, and you put in maximum effort into that, muscles are working really hard. The physical part of the muscle that tells your brain to stop attempting to lift it is too much is called the Golgi body. You actually train yourselves to override it with steadily increasing lifts, and steadily increasing resistance that you're using, but they're actually there as a protective mechanism. We're just overriding it slightly by continuing the stretch. Okay, we'll pop this round back into the other side. With the standing quad stretch and this stretch, you've got pretty much the lower body coverall in terms of the glutes and the hamstring, glutes and the quads. Hamstrings we've managed to stretch with the downward dog. good one for the hamstrings more directly is actually lying down. You might want to pop a towel round just so you can grip quite nicely just around the back of the leg, and then aiming to lie as flat as you can in terms of your back. It'll be a natural curve, and then aiming to hold this up. Now, the more you bring this towards you, the more stretch we're going to get, but we need to maintain a fairly straight leg. Don't fully lock the knee, have it so there is a bit of bend there. Use your hand position and how much force you put into holding the leg to just make sure the knee's not completely locked. We're getting a nice stretch now down the back of the hamstrings. And to the side, once again, with the pigeon stretch and this stretch. I'm going to do both sides equally and repeat them if you need to repeat them. And each time you kind of go around each repetition, you might get that little bit of extra stretch that over time is going to improve your flexibility and mobility, but also is going to help with that immediate kind of stretch you're doing at the time you're doing it. And relaxing off. And finishing with kind of lower body stretch that really covers most bases. We're going to go through all the joints in one with the deep squat. So the depth of your squat is going to depend on your femur length, the top of your legs, how flexible you are. But one way of getting further into the stretch is have something in front of you to support it, a fairly low table, and that kind of gives you that confidence then that you can get back up. You can add a little bit more to this with the arms just inside the knees on a tiny little squeeze out. That's adducting the hips, pushing them out, abducting the hips, and that's going to add a little bit more stretch then into the glutes. So after moving about, if you've only got 20 seconds to do one lower body stretch, this is the one to do. 20-30 seconds like this, you're going to get a nice benefit. If you can build that up, even as a daily thing, your lower body mobility is going to be improved. Your overall longevity and movement in the joints and the muscles is going to be vastly improved over time if you did this every day, every other day. Easing up. So, great set of stretches for recovery or any time for improving mobility and your flexibility, contributing to that overall fitness and well-being.